What is going on, you Stallions and Stallionettes? AK-40 Kevin here in the gamer heaven. Today we're going to be doing a controller build on an Xbox Series S/X controller. We're going to go with a full-on whited out Blizzard style theme, so white buttons, white analog sticks, white D-pad, white home button. Basically this thing is going to look like a brick of cocaine, so this is going to look fantastic when we're done. And this one is going to be my personal controller. Obviously everything has a price, so if somebody wants it, I will, list this on my Facebook page for my small business building controllers. And if somebody gets real tickled in the nether regions, I'll just go ahead and sell it. But as for now, this is going to be my dedicated backup controller. Importantly, you can do this build for under $20. You need an integrated or 2-in-1 paint and primer in either matte or gloss white, and then you also need to get yourself a can of matte or gloss clear coat. And then for $10, we're going to get some all white face buttons from Amazon. All this will be linked in the description below, as well as the respirator I use when I paint and any other products like my toolkit for disassembly. You are also going to need a T6 and T8 screwdriver set in order to disassemble it. We can kind of factor that into the build cost. It's about $10 on Amazon. And if you want to cut costs on the build even further, instead of getting the face button set for $10 on Amazon, you can just go ahead and rattle can those as well and give it that full whited out look. So without further ado, guys, let's crack right into this build by disassembling this bad boy. Alrighty guys, over here at the Stormtrooper desktop, as always, this is where we do our unboxings, tech reviews, as well as our builds. So the first step of any build is, of course, disassembling your stock controller. So you're going to need some kind of a toolkit like what I have here. This is a cheaper one. They do have more advanced ones that are about 20 bucks. I think this one was probably about $5 on Amazon, and I will have it linked in the description below. So first things first, you need to pop off these side shells. So once you've popped off these two side shells of the back shell here, with your pry tool, you are going to go ahead and remove the battery door, as well as this little sticker here. Once you remove the sticker, your warranty is voided. However, I mean, honestly, Microsoft doesn't really honor their warranties for like the standard controllers. They pay more attention to their more expensive peripherals like the Elite 2 and stuff like that. Not to mention, you can always put that sticker back, but however, if you send in a controller and it's fucking, the titties are customized off it, it's got a hydro dip faceplate and custom face buttons and shit like that, they're going to know it's been modified and they're not going to touch it. Something to keep in mind. So you have 4 T8 screws. You are going to need your T8 screwdriver. You have 2 in each palm and then 1 in this battery cover door. Just going to remove those and that will separate the front and rear shell. Alright, set your screws aside. You can have a little dish or tray or a little magnetized cup or something, you put those in. I'm just going to set them aside here because even if I lose them, I have a bag with like hundreds of these screws. So that's your faceplate right there. Your back shell is going to pop right off as well. There's your back shell. This is the actual board itself. Now, since we're starting out with a controller that already has white bumpers and triggers, that's awesome. I would recommend starting out with a white Xbox controller if you are going to do the specific build that I'm going to do, trying to white it out completely. So we're going to take off the thumbsticks, get a fingernail underneath this little metal disc here, and that pries up. That's what holds the D-pad in place. Now we need to get to these face buttons. In order to do that, we are going to have to disassemble this shell here. I am also going to remove these rumble force motors. You don't have to, but I recommend it because it saves 1/3 of the weight of the controller, so it feels much lighter in the hand, increases your battery life, and you still get vibration from the trigger vibration motors, which in my opinion are more dynamic anyway. These just kind of rumble in your palms. These ones, to me, I get more of an immersive satisfaction from feeling them in the triggers, me personally. So you can just rip these black and red wires directly off the board where they're soldered in, like that. And these can now get thrown in the trash. Sweet. Now we need to remove the center chin or lip, and this is what keeps the bumpers in place. You can use a fingernail, however it is easier if you just get your pry tool up underneath there and pry it off of the 2 little prongs that it's holding onto. Go ahead and take your bumper off. And with the new Series S and X, it is a little bit different than the Xbox One controller. You do have these little tiny prongs on each side that you need to get up and over in order to get them off of the controller. Now you want to leave this button in place. I like on the new Series S and X controllers, it stays in place a lot better. I've customized dozens and dozens of Xbox One controllers, and this button for pairing or syncing the controller always falls out. Triggers, we can go ahead and leave those on there. If we were going to paint them, there is 1 T6 screw, which is a smaller screw right there, and then a little a little tab that it's held on by right there. So if you have the black controller and you want to wipe these out or something, you will need to remove those real quick. Now moving on, flipping this over, you are going to grab your T6 screwdriver, which is the smaller one, and you have 2 screws in the bottom left and right of the back chip. We are going to remove those now, and we are going to keep the T6 screws in a separate pile from our T8s, which are for the shell. Holy moly, then we're going to drop the screwdriver into our crotch, hoping it misses our urethra tip. Those 2, you're going to take your finger and pry up on this back board. It's going to pop out like this. There are wires soldered in here, so be careful not to rip them out or anything like that. Just going to flip it up and out of the way like that. Now your 3.5mm headphone jack is just going to come out. When you do go to reassemble it, you need this metal prongs up like that. It sandwiches in there between the boards and snaps in. Alright, now you have 2, 4, 6 T6 screws underneath here. So you're going to go ahead and remove those now. Another tool I highly recommend if you're going to be doing controller builds, because it does kind of increase your quality of life when it comes to doing this, is a little tool like this. It can magnetize or demagnetize your tools. So if you get a screwdriver like this that doesn't really hold natural polarization or whatever and be magnetized, you can magnetize it, which is really, really convenient for these little tiny screws. Again, that will be linked in the description below. Any links that you see in the description below are affiliate links, so you will not pay an extra dime for your purchase. However, I do get a small commission from referring you. So I do definitely appreciate that if you guys do use those links. Also check out the Dash Pass link that I have in the description below. You will save $30. That is $10 off your first 3 orders. And that literally pays for itself. I got Dash Pass a month ago and I will never go back. I think I saved $36 this month and I barely order. I think I ordered like 2 or 3 times when I was too lazy to cook for myself. And there's over 30 restaurants in my local area, which is awesome. And yeah, it's the full menu. And from what I've seen, the Dash Pass drivers are all reincarnated Paul Walker because they are extremely quick delivering. Alright, sweet. So you have your rubber gasket in here. You're going to leave that in place. We are going to be removing these face buttons. They just pop right out like this. If you turn this controller upside down right now, all these face buttons, the home button and everything will fall out. Speaking of which, we are going to be painting the home button all white as well. Get these face buttons out of here. Perfect. Alright, and we're going to leave all these 3, share and option buttons. We're going to leave those in place because those are already white, making our job easy peasy, lemon squeezy. These stock buttons you can now throw away unless you were going to be using these stock buttons and just spraying them with white, gloss, or matte. But for me personally, I have some white buttons that I'm going to be using for this build. Okay guys, so this is the face buttons I'm going to be using. Yes, there is a lot in there. It's actually 2 pairs, so I only need, the 4 buttons for this controller. And these are on Amazon for $10. They have a whole slew of other colors, but obviously we're going with that white theme for this one. And then also the thumbsticks I'm using are from Extreme Rate. It comes with this nice little carrying case, white domes, and then 6 white magnetic thumbstick caps that snap on and off, which is really cool. Now, again, you're probably not going to be using this if you're going for that straight budget build. You can do this for $10. That's 2 cans of spray paint, probably around actually like $7. You need your clear coat, either gloss or matte, and you need matte or gloss white spray paint that has to say bonds to plastic, and also get one that's paint and primer. If you don't get that, then you're going to need to get a 3rd can that is white primer. So that's technically all you need for this build to get everything all whited out. However, I have a small business building controller, so I've had these parts sitting in my collection for like the longest time, and I want to use them for my personal build here. So I've got these 4 face buttons here, which look pretty darn cool, as well as these magnetic, actually I don't even think they're magnetic, I think they just snap on and off, but it's cool because you can swap thumbsticks on the fly without having to take the controller apart and remove the actual thumbsticks themselves. So that's pretty cool, and that saves me one less component that I don't have to spray paint. Alright, so getting these face buttons in, we're going to do the exact same process we did to get those ones out. We're just going to drop them in, and you can only put Xbox buttons in the right way. You can only put the right button in the right slot, and you can only put them in the right direction. You can't put in like Y upside down or A upside down or anything like that, because they have these little tabs or prongs that fit into the controller shell, which is very, very convenient for sure, Now the long one, the longest button is always B. They have an interesting design. B actually makes contact with the backboard, not the front board. So that's very interesting. Now we can't bolt this all together just yet because we need to paint that Xbox home button. However, you know what? Instead of painting it, I actually have these transparent stickers that I think I'm actually going to use instead, so the light bleeds through there. It looks really cool. So I think I'll probably go with that as an option. Those are PlayStation ones. Well, I have Xbox ones in here too. Again, all of these are linked in the description below if you want to spend a little bit more and get a more custom premium build for yourself. As well as my controller company. It links to my Facebook page as I am in the process of building an e-commerce website right now. If you guys want to not worry about assembling and hydro dipping and doing all this stuff and you just want a one-off custom controller to fit your personality delivered to your door, you let me know and I'll make it happen. I'm thinking instead of painting the home button, I actually am going to use one of these cool translucent stickers on there, maybe something with that blue energy where the light's going to bleed through it. I think that'll look really cool. It won't be completely whited out because I'm not going to spray the home button white, but it will look really, really cool in my opinion. So we're just going to put that Xbox button back in there then, and we can go ahead and bolt this back board right in there. So, all right, now before I completely finish tightening down this board, I want to test all the buttons to make sure that they are making contact. Keep in mind B will feel a little squishy because this backboard is actually what makes contact with it, but all the other buttons should feel as normal, and they do. So remember to sandwich in the 3.5mm headphone jack. You just place it in like that with the metal prongs up, flip this board down, it's going to pinch that in. Awesome, awesome. Okay, it looks like one of these wires came out. I do have a soldering gun, but I don't know if these actually need to be soldered. I think they might just actually snip on. Actually, it does look like they just snip on. Hopefully that's the case. I don't like to solder if I don't have to. Yeah, they just snap on. You don't even need to solder these. That's freaking awesome. So that makes it a lot easier for the disassembly. You can just pop both of these white wires off and pull off the backboard. Not completely, because you have these here that are soldered on. So you'll have a little more maneuverability to rotate the board around and get it out of the way. That's kind of cool. So there are two little cutouts in the backboard where you can tuck the wires for, these are called aerials. These wires here, these two white wires. So let's go ahead and get the bumpers back on. I'm going to put the bumpers on first. Make sure you have it the right way, right bumper. You're going to pull back the triggers like this so they're up and out of the way and they're not pushing on the bumpers, and they should just drop right in. Now keep in mind on the Series X and S, it's a little more tricky because they have this little these little plastic prongs on the side, which is a great design. It actually makes the bumpers feel a lot more in place and durable and a little more clicky, but for the assembly and disassembly it makes it a little bit more tricky, but not too bad. And then you're going to go ahead and put the chin or centerpiece back on, and that's going to snap on like that into those two black prongs. You want to make sure that this pairing button still works and that your USB-C is still lined up, and yes it is. Alrighty guys, in the garage with our D-pad here, the paint that we're going to be using here is this Ultra Matte. And yes, indeed, it does bond to plastic. You want to make sure you have that. And then also paint and primer, so that way you don't need to do a separate coat of primer or separate 2 to 3 coats of primer. Now this thing is almost empty, so hopefully we can squeeze out enough juice to get this thing painted. A little bro tip that I like to do when I'm painting small components like that is to take a little bit of masking tape and actually kind of turn it into, okay, that works, double-sided tape like this, just loop it around. And stick your component down, because these things are so light that when you spray the aerosol can, sometimes the air pushes it around, it can flip upside down, and then you got all that wet paint that's, you know, getting all smushed and stuff. So I like to just push these things down now that thing's in place a little bit better. And then also I like to use some kind of either a cardboard box or this plastic tray right here, so that way I can rotate pieces. Not a huge deal with the D-pad, but if you're doing a controller shell or something like that, you want to make it easier on yourself. Don't move yourself around the product. Move the component around you, so that way you can hit it from all angles and everything. So let's see if we can get anything out of here. Remember, shake the pan for 30 to 60 seconds, as it does have primer in there. You want to hear that little metal ball bearing swirling around there, mixing up all the paint. Like I said, this is almost empty, so I can't really go at an angle like this. I have to more or less be completely straight, and you want to keep it, they say 6 to 8 inches, but for small components like this, I say, from my experience, 4 to 6 inches seems to get pretty good coverage. And just go in a fan pattern back and forth. Yeah, that's almost out. Alright, that's good for the first coat. You just want full coverage, and then we're going to come back around and make sure that everything's smooth. We'll add another probably 1 to 2 coats and be good there. Alrighty boys, we got our D-pad here that is 3 coats of matte white, and we got full coverage on it, which is good because I'm completely out of the paint over there now. So what we're going to be doing is adding 2 to 3 coats of this matte clear over here. I think being as it is a D-pad, I think gloss would look a little bit tacky. You know, for a shell, yeah, cool. Buttons, alright. Triggers, man, but like bumpers, D-pad, stuff like that, I think it looks better matte. So remember, 4 to 6 inches, like I said, nice fan passion. Yeah, I have a passion for building controllers. A nice fan pattern here. And again, bro tip, if you're on some kind of cardboard or tray like this, you can just rotate it around instead of having to, you know, rotate your body around there. Sweet, we'll do one more and she is good to go. So the reason that you want to use a clear coat on there, especially for something like a D-pad that you're going to be constantly touching, same thing with like a shell, you know, a front or back shell for a controller, is that your hands are constantly touching it. So you're getting friction on there and eventually the paint could rub off. But if you put a good sealant / clear coat on there, then you are good to go and it's not going to wear off over time. Not to mention, it actually makes it look quite a bit better too. If you don't use a clear coat, it kind of just looks unfinished. Alrighty boys, we got our D-pad here looking all nice and crispy white. I'm going to go ahead and pop that bad boy in. It can only go in one way. You have to have this little notch at the bottom or else it just literally won't go in. Going to pop in the retaining disc to hold it back now. Come on, sweetheart, you're being finicky today, aren't you? Alright, reassembler. You want to make sure when you slide on the chip that these prongs right here slide through the slots for the battery like that. So your battery actually makes contact. Make sure your triggers are seated properly. And go ahead and put the front faceplate on. That looks pretty goddamn dope, I'm not gonna lie. That white that I use for the D-pad almost looks like a creamy eggshell white. It doesn't look like super white, so I'm probably gonna end up repainting that when I get some different white paint. They're gonna take our T8 screws and put them back where we got them. Alright boys, gonna put the finishing touch on there, slap a translucent sticker over the Xbox button, and the thumbsticks that come with it are actually pretty cool. I've had a lot of these different little, you know, adjustable magnetic thumbstick kits in the past, and sometimes they have pretty crappy sticks with them, but honestly, not bad. So you have 2 short concave sticks that are kind of ribbed a little bit, and they have a pretty good rubber texture on them, pretty grippy. They're not like scuff material or anything. Then you also have a high one of those, so you obviously would put that on the right stick to get a little more leverage in your aiming. And then you also have 2 nice soft rubberized dome sticks. These ones are medium, and you have 1 high. So I think what I'm gonna do is use a short domed on the left and a high dome on the right. Alright, that's the final product right there, boys. Really cheap, really easy build there. Like I said, if you want to keep the build cost down to about 5, you know, well actually more like $7, you can just paint these yourselves instead of getting these actual face buttons. You don't need to get this thumbstick kit. You can just paint the actual caps in there, and yeah, I mean, this is pretty sick, man. I really like this all white design. I'm probably gonna repaint this with a different white because this is kind of like an eggshell white or vanilla cream, I guess you could call it. It's not really like a white, and I want this thing whiter than the driven snow. Alright guys, peace.